Imagine building your dream life from nothing. A beautiful wife. A show that millions of people love. A town that calls you a hero. And then, just when everything feels perfect, your own body starts to fall apart. That is exactly what happened to Ben Napier. And the full story is far more painful than anything you have ever seen on your television screen. Stay with us, because what we are about to share will completely change the way you look at this man. Ben Napier did not grow up dreaming of cameras and television fame. He grew up in Collins, Mississippi, in a simple home filled with faith, hard work, and the smell of fresh-cut wood. His father was a United Methodist preacher, and Ben spent his early years watching his dad lead a congregation every Sunday. The plan seemed clear. Ben would follow in his father's footsteps. He even took on the role of youth minister at Laurel, First United Methodist Church, standing in front of young people and sharing lessons about life and faith. But something was quietly pulling at him from the inside. Something he could not ignore no matter how hard he tried. His father, the same man who delivered sermons every week, also had a deep love for fixing things with his hands. He was a preacher, yes, but he was also a builder. And when Ben was still a young boy, his father handed him his very first set of tools. That moment changed everything. Ben later wrote about it on Father's Day, calling it one of the most meaningful gifts he ever received. Not because of what the tools were made of, but because of what they represented. They were a door to a whole new world. A world where broken things could be made beautiful again. Ben went on to study history at the University of Mississippi. To most people, studying history and loving woodworking might seem like two totally different things. But for Ben, they fit together perfectly. History taught him to respect old things, to see value in what others might throw away. And woodworking gave him the power to bring those old things back to life with his own two hands. It was during this time that Ben also met the woman who would become his greatest partner in every sense of the word. Her name was Erin. They met at Jones County Junior College, and from the very first conversation, something clicked. By the end of that same year, they had already promised each other they would get married one day. And in 2008, they did exactly that. Together, Ben and Erin made a choice that surprised a lot of people. Instead of moving to a big city to chase big opportunities, they went back to Laurel, Mississippi. A small town, a quiet town, a town that many people had already given up on. But Ben and Erin saw something that others could not see. They saw a place worth saving. And in 2014, after Ben quietly stepped away from youth ministry, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He picked up his tools and got to work. What happened next is the kind of story that almost sounds too good to be true. Erin started posting photos on Instagram of the old home they were fixing up together. She used a simple hashtag, I live in Laurel. Post by post, photo by photo, people started paying attention. Ben's craftsmanship was breathtaking. Erin's design eye was sharp and warm and filled with personality. Their chemistry was natural and genuine and impossible to fake. And without even trying to become famous, they became exactly that. A television executive from HGTV stumbled across Erin's Instagram page and could not look away. The network reached out. A pilot was filmed. And in January 2016, Home Town officially premiered on HGTV. The response was unlike anything the network had expected. Viewers did not just like the show. They fell in love with it. Because Home Town was not like other home renovation shows. There were no fake, dramatic fights. No over-the-top budgets. No cookie-cutter designs. What people saw on their screens every week felt real. Because it was real. Ben and Erin had no television experience before the show. They had never even watched much reality TV. They simply showed up as themselves. And that was more than enough. Season after season, the show grew. By 2023, Home Town had aired over 80 episodes and become one of the most watched real estate shows in the entire country. Laurel, Mississippi went from a forgotten little town to a place people were booking flights to visit. All because of one couple who believed in it. But here is where the story takes a turn. Here is the part that the polished television moments never fully showed you. Because behind the smiles, behind the sawdust, and behind the beautiful reveals, Ben Napier was quietly suffering. And the tragedy of what happened to him is something that no amount of television success could fix. In 2023, fans who watched every episode started noticing something strange. Ben was missing from scenes he would normally never skip. His presence on set felt shorter, more limited. The man who was always the first one to pick up a heavy beam or swing a hammer was suddenly nowhere to be found during some of the most physical parts of the job. People started asking questions online. Where was Ben? What was going on? And then Erin finally told the truth. Ben had undergone major shoulder surgery, and not just a minor procedure. The surgery involved trimming cartilage, removing bone spurs, and repairing his rotator cuff in his right shoulder. His right shoulder. The same shoulder he had used thousands of times over the years to lift, build, and create everything people saw on the show. The surgery was a success in the medical sense. But the recovery was something close to heartbreaking for a man like Ben. Think about what it means to be someone whose entire identity is built around working with your hands. Ben did not just do woodworking as a job. He did it because it was who he was. It was how he felt alive. And suddenly, he could not do any of it. He could not lift materials. He could not swing a hammer. He could not even manage the smallest movements without feeling pain. Erin later opened up about how hard that period was for him. She described watching her husband struggle not just physically, but emotionally. Because when you take away the thing that defines you, you are left with a question that is very hard to answer. Who are you without it? Ben had to learn something he had never really practiced before. Letting go. He had to trust his crew to carry out his vision without him standing right there to do it himself. He had to watch from the side while other people did the work his hands were no longer allowed to do. For someone as hands-on and driven as Ben Napier, that kind of stillness felt like a kind of loss that does not have a name. And just when it seemed like the shoulder recovery was the hardest thing he would face, there was more. In 2025, Erin shared another update about Ben's health. Chronic ankle pain from an old basketball injury had been quietly eating away at him for years. He had been walking around on it, working on it, filming on it, all without telling most people just how bad it had gotten. He eventually began a treatment called stem wave therapy, which uses sound waves to help the body heal from the inside. The pain that had been sitting at a 12 out of 10 on the pain scale dropped to around a 4. That was real progress. But the doctors made one thing very clear. Ben may still need a full ankle replacement in the future. And for a man who earns his living on his feet, in the dirt, on job sites, that possibility hangs over everything like a dark cloud. But even that was not the end of the health battles Ben was quietly fighting. Around the same time, he looked in the mirror and did not like what he saw. The years of physically demanding work, combined with the stress of fame and the irregular schedule of television production, had taken a real toll on his body. His weight had climbed. His blood pressure was a concern. And he knew that if he did not make a change, the person who might suffer the most was not just him. It was his family. So Ben made a decision. A quiet, private, deeply personal decision. He was going to get healthy. Not for the cameras. Not for the fans. But for Erin, and for his 2 daughters, Helen and May. He changed the way he ate. He started intermittent fasting. He added light cardio and yoga into his daily routine. He even built a small gym on their property, a private space where he could work on himself away from the public eye. And over the next 3 years, Ben Napier lost nearly 100 pounds. 100 pounds. Erin has said openly that she loved him at every size. But watching him reclaim his health and his energy and his strength was one of the proudest things she has ever witnessed in their marriage. What makes all of this even harder to sit with is the timing. Because while Ben was going through shoulder pain and ankle pain and a complete lifestyle overhaul, the show was also growing faster than ever. Hometown Takeover had launched. New towns were being transformed. New episodes were being filmed. The world was watching Ben Napier at his brightest. And almost none of them knew that behind every smile, behind every handshake with a happy homeowner, he was carrying a body that was slowly breaking down under the weight of everything he loved to do. There is something deeply human about that. Going through your hardest season while your best season is happening at the exact same time. Smiling for the cameras while quietly wondering how much longer your shoulder will hold. Shaking hands at a reveal while your ankle screams with every step. Inspiring millions of people while privately fighting battles that have nothing to do with old houses or power tools. But Ben did not quit. He did not walk away from the show. He did not disappear from his family or from his town. He did what he has always done. He showed up. He adapted. He kept building, even when building meant rebuilding himself instead of house. And that more than any renovation he has ever completed is the most powerful thing Ben Napier has ever created. Today, Ben and Erin still live in Laurel. They still walk to the same coffee shop. They still get their hands dirty. Their daughters, Helen and May, go to local schools and grow up surrounded by the same community that first believed in their parents before the rest of the world caught on. In 2024, Jones College, the very school where Ben and Erin first met, announced the creation of the Erin and Ben Napier School of Design and Building Arts, a school named after them, built to train the next generation of craftspeople to do exactly what they have spent their lives doing. That is not just success. That is a legacy. Ben Napier's story is not a perfect one. It never was. It is a story full of pain and setbacks and quiet suffering that never made the highlight reel. But it is also a story about what happens when a person refuses to let their hardest moments define them. When a preacher's son picks up a hammer and decides to build something the world has never seen before. And when a man who loses the use of his strongest arm somehow finds a way to keep standing. So the next time you watch Ben walk through an old house and run his hand along a wooden beam with that big warm smile on his face, remember what it cost him to be there. Remember the surgeries. Remember the pain. Remember the 100 pounds. Remember the man behind the television moment. Because that is the real Ben Napier. And his story is far more inspiring than any house he has ever restored. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell us which part hit you the hardest. And if you want more untold stories about the celebrities you grew up watching, make sure you subscribe because we are just getting started.